I am making the corneal epithelium now. This is the palisades of Vogt, means I am at the limbus now, which continues at the conjunctival epithelium. So here we have conjunctival epithelium. This I am conjunctival epithelium. This is a corneal epithelium. Only the epithelium of the cornea I have drawn. And what's the next layer of the cornea? You know that from the epithelium there is a Bowman's membrane. Okay, so this I am making the Bowman's membrane of the cornea. Now this termination of the Bowman's membrane is the one thing which you have to remember. This is the Bowman's membrane termination. Okay, let me draw and then I'll tell you what is going on. From here, let me just, this is the palisades of Vogt, okay, and this is the Bowman's membrane. From here, the substantia propria of the conjunctiva starts. This is the stroma or the propria of the conjunctiva, which contains the adenoid and the fibrous tissue. Now, there is a stromal layer of the cornea. Now, the stromal layer of the cornea is like this, and after that comes the Dua's layer and the Descemet's membrane. Now, this is a termination of the Descemet's membrane. This one, the Descemet's membrane is terminating over here, and that is what is known as Schwalbe's line. I hope you remember the gonioscopy. In gonioscopy, the termination of Descemet's membrane. Descemet's membrane of the cornea, that is known as the Schwalbe's line. And there is the endothelium, of course. There is the endothelium of the cornea as well. So this is a stromal tissue, and it contains a regular collagen fibers and lamellar arrangement, lattice arrangement of collagen fibers. Continue from the cornea. There is a trabecular meshwork, and this is the angle, and this canal is a Schlem's canal. I'll mark. This is an important structure which is known as a scleral spur, and after that comes the ciliary body band, and that is the iris tissue, iris plane. This is the ciliary body band, that is the attachment of the ciliary body known as scleral spur, and here we have the meshwork, that is trabecular meshwork. This is what? This is the angle of the antechamber. What canal is this? This is Schlem's canal. This is anatomy which I am drawing of the angle and the limbus, you will understand. This is your trabecular meshwork. Okay, this I have told you, this is what the palisades of Vogt. Which is more in the superior and inferior. Palisades are more in the superior and inferior. Now, what is a landmark? What important landmark you have to understand while doing the limbus? Now, thus anatomical limbus. What is anatomical limbus? Anatomical limbus is defined from histopathological perspective. Okay, so it is defined as histopath perspective. It is a transition zone between the corneal epithelium and the conjunctival epithelium, or the cornea stroma and the sclera. This is the sclera, and in the sclera, that also contains collagen, but the collagen are dispersed. That's why sclera is opaque and cornea is transparent, because the sclera contains the irregular collagen and the cornea contains the regular collagen. So between, what is anatomical limbus? If someone asks you, anatomical limbus is defined from a histopath perspective. It's a transition zone between the corneal epithelium and conjunctival epithelium, or the corneal stroma and the sclera. Now where does it start? The anatomical limbus. So if we draw a line, going from the Bowman's membrane and the termination of Descemet's membrane. Now this line is the boundary, anatomical boundary of the limbus. This is the anatomical boundary of the limbus. If I just extrapolate it over here like this. And the posterior border, another point is scleral spur. So if I just insert another line from the scleral spur, if we make another line now, this boundary which you have drawn now, that forms the anatomical limbus. This forms the anatomical limbus, whose anterior boundary is a line joining the Bowman's membrane and the Schwalbe's line, that's the termination of Descemet's, and the posterior boundary is line from the scleral spur. So anterior to that is the corneal epithelium, then there is the limbal epithelium, then there is the conjunctival epithelium. So anatomical limbus defined from histopath perspective it's a transition zone. It's an oblique transition zone between the corneal epithelium and the conjunctival epithelium, or between the cornea, stroma and the sclera. It's an oblique zone of transition between these things. That is the anatomical limbus. Okay, so this diagram also you can draw. Now this is the picture which I could have shown you. This zone, that is the anatomical limbus. Now this, if you can see, this one is the termination of Bowman's membrane. This one is a termination of Descemet's membrane, that is the Schwalbe's line. Now this area which the cornea makes like this is known as a scleral sulcus. This is known as a scleral sulcus. The lamella of the cornea is regular, while sclera is irregular. I'll just mark this one is a conjunctival, this is the limbal epithelium, this is the conjunctival epithelium, this is the corneal epithelium. So that's the transition zone. This is a substantia propria, I told you, starting from the Bowman's membrane termination, and then the substantia propria, the adenoid fibrous tissue starts. Okay. Now how does it help you clinically? In clinically, this helps you in identifying the structures on anterior segment optical coherence tomography. If you see, this is also similar to what we have drawn. What you can identify is this prominent thing. What is this? This is a scleral sulcus. You can see there is a transition, there is a homogeneous cornea, while heterogeneous sclera, and this is the scleral sulcus, which is prominent in the picture of ASOCT. What other things is prominent over here? See this, another homogeneous. This becomes a ciliary body band, and the termination, this attachment, this is an important structure, is scleral spur. Can you identify this one? What is this? This one will be the Bowman's membrane termination. Okay, so this is helpful. This anatomy is helpful for identifying the various parts, various important landmarks in anti-segment OCT. If you identify this, if you don't know it's open angle, close angle, it doesn't matter. You identify the structures properly in residency, that will be enough. You identify the scleral spur, ciliary body band, You identify the Bowman's membrane, scleral sulcus. If you take these names, then also this will be okay in the exam. But now let us see what is, this is the anatomical limbus.